Hello everyone, welcome back to Mind Intelligence, and today we have another video of Land the Job. Today we are here with Dina. Hi Dina, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about me. I grew up in a pretty small town in Wasaga Beach, it's like 2 hours north of Toronto. I'm the fifth of 7 kids. My first business experience was working at my parents' ice cream shop. And then from there, I just always knew I wanted to be in business. So went from scooping ice cream to figuring out that I wanted to go into banking. And then that's where I had my last summer internship.
And what was your position?
I was an investment banking summer analyst for CIBC in their CIT group, which is like diversified plus tech.
And could you walk us through your recruitment process from the very, very beginning?
So in second year, I networked with some people, joined some clubs, and strengthened my resume, and ended up getting CIBC personal and small business banking. So I was there in their finance division as an intern last summer. And then that's really important because you need to show that you're not a weird person and you can work in these types of environments and you can work in an office and work with people. And then from there, networked more over the summer, strengthened some of my technical skills and prepped for interviews, and then was invited in August by CIBC to come in for a super day in their early recruitment. And then recruited for CIBC and it worked out. So signed in August, and then I started in May, and then just completed it a few weeks ago.
Okay, that sounds great. So can you tell us a little bit about the interview format? So you mentioned that you did early recruitment. So was that maybe internal through CIBC, or was it just an early wave of recruitment?
Pretty much all the banks, like Canadian and American, are pushing their recruitment earlier, and they're having more women and diversity efforts to hire those people earlier than even their regular recruitment. So a lot of the women's recruitment for the Canadian banks happen in August. And so I'm pretty sure they all operate as invite only except for the scholarship ones. So you had to have network with people or talk to people, and then you just get invited. I'm not sure exactly how it works. And then it's the same process as the other one. So you do a few interviews with multiple people in just a boardroom, or I guess online this summer. And they ask you behavioral and technical questions and see if they like you. And then you go on to the next round, and sometimes it's multiple days. And then they pick, and then you know if you got it or not.
So you mentioned that you actually did a few interviews. Do you remember how many interviews exactly you had to do?
It was only 2. So the early recruitment, it was 1 day. It was 2 interviews. I think there were 2 people in my first interview, 4 people in my second interview. And then there's 2 or more people in each interview. And then they ask you some of the same questions. So they'll always ask you, tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume. It's the first question they always ask. And then they ask you, some people like to start with technicals, but mostly people start with behaviorals. And then the behaviorals are pretty standard. You'll just need to know what are your strengths and weaknesses, and tell me about a time you handled conflict, and all of those great ones. And then the technicals are pretty much all from the guide. So Breaking into Wall Street is the one that sometimes you'll hear questions directly from Breaking into Wall Street. But what they're trying to test, and CIBC didn't do that, they were more high level, trying to see if you understand why that is the case. So they'll test time value of money, or the weighted average cost of capital, or depreciation questions in a different way that you haven't seen in the guide, to see if you actually understand it. So it's questions like that.
Was there a question in the behavioral or technical section that you kind of got stuck on? And if you did, how did you handle going about it?
I definitely got stuck on them. It's tricky because even if you know the answer, being asked by 4 people across from you or 5 people across from you in an interview setting can make you just forget how to do it. And so you have to be pretty comfortable. So I think I messed up one of the free cash flows because they ask you unlevered versus levered, and then they ask you the different ways, if you start at this number versus starting at a different number, how do you get to it? And I think I messed that one up. But usually they're nice about it. They'll either give you a hint, or they'll just move on and you'll get to prove yourself later. That was one I got stuck on. But one of my favorite questions that I didn't get asked, that they asked the summer before, is a coupon question. So they'll say like, I'll give you a gift card. You get $5 a day every day for the rest of your life. How much is that coupon worth, or like that gift card worth? Right. So then it tests time value of money and weighted average cost of capital and opportunity cost, and just like how you go about problem solving in a really cool way, I think. So I actually ask that a lot in the interviews that I do for clubs, but I think I've asked it enough now that I can't ask it anymore.
Awesome. That's a really interesting question. So apart from using the Breaking into Wall Street guides, what other things did you do to prepare for your interview?
Again, talking to people is really important. Some of the upper years have question lists from specific banks. So when they did recruitment, they have just a list of questions that they were asked in every single interview that you can use to prep as well, because it's more like bank specific. And then being part of clubs, like the finance clubs at U of T, is really important because you actually get to practice doing a stock pitch, or doing like a cap table, or doing a comp set, or precedents, or just like understanding these concepts a bit more. And then you have access to these people who are like more willing to help you if you're in the same club. So I think that's what was most important.
How did you decide on investment banking?
I didn't even know investment banking existed until the beginning of second year. And then I joined what is now, I think, RC Cubed, the mentorship program with upper years. Okay. And I met the previous president of a club that I'm in, who told me about investment banking, and was just like talking a little bit more about it. And I was like, ooh, that sounds fun. And then the more I heard about it, the more people were like, oh, it's really difficult though. And like, people can't handle it. And there's like not a lot of women, which is actually not true now, but that's a whole separate thing. And then like the more people talked about how difficult it was, or like how long the hours were, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to go for then. Because people like held it up on a pedestal and were like, this is what like you should shoot for, and this is what the most difficult thing is. So I was interested, maybe like for the wrong reasons. But then as I talked to people, I learned more about it. I was like, oh, that actually seems interesting. So yeah, it was that initial chat through the Rotman mentorship program that I found out about it, and then learned more about it by myself and through upper years.
Yeah, I fully get that. Honestly, when people tell me like something is challenging, it's like kind of like, I guess I want to prove myself wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, you could.
Which is maybe unhealthy, but
yeah.
It's like
not the best, but
yeah, maybe bad, but it's okay. It worked out
in this case, so no, great.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I like to just go back to technicals for a second. So one thing that you do in investment banking, even though you mentioned in your day in the life video that modeling actually wasn't a huge part of your job, is that something that they actually test during the interview? So are you expected to have prior financial modeling knowledge? And if so, have you experienced them test you on it in interviews?
I was never tested on like do a paper LBO. That's usually the most you'll be tested on modeling, but you need to have some sort of modeling experience, I think, to just be a good candidate, because it shows that you're actually serious about this. Because not all teams are the same, and you don't always recruit specifically for that group. Like you'll apply to CIBC and the groups will pick you. So if I was placed into M&A, then I would have had more modeling experience this summer. But regardless of what group you're in, you need to understand how to model, because even though the summer interns don't do it, like the analysts and the associates might do it. So, and you can do that like through Marquee, or through, I think like LinkedIn Learning has stuff now, or YouTube videos. You can just learn how to do it. And there's books you can look at too.
Finally, Dina, do you have any advice for people going in and doing these interviews? Any tips and tricks that we need to know?
Well, you need to make sure you're doing mock interviews, and that also goes with talking to people. So it's really important to have a good relationship with upper years, because upper years had those jobs and they will vouch for you if you're good. And usually the only people who get the jobs are the people who have upper years or other people vouching for them, because it is so competitive. So you obviously, like, again, you need to be talking to people, and networking is super important, but you need to practice those interviews, because it's one thing to learn the topic and think you understand it when you're reading alone at home. And it's an entirely different thing when you have 5 people, again, like sitting across from you, asking you this question and asking you over and over and over again for more details. or like grilling you on your stock pitch, like you really need to understand it. And you won't understand how that feels or the specific questions that they could ask you until somebody else helps you with that process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dina, for being here today. I definitely learned a lot. I hope you guys did as well. If you guys haven't checked out Dina's Day in the Life video, be sure to check that out. She talks about her CIBC investment banking internship position for the past summer. Thank you so much, Dina, for being here with us. And we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me.